Welcome to Exiles, a Gospel of Mark podcast. We're coming to you from Grace Church in Erie, Pennsylvania, where we're taking what we learn about ancient truths and the person of Jesus into our everyday life. You can check out whoisgrace.com/Mark for the sermon and resources we're using for our conversation. Thanks for joining us today for Season 5, our final season. Only a few more episodes left in this section of Mark. The end is just the beginning. We're going to pick up where we left off in this greatest of stories, following Jesus through his final days in Jerusalem, learning alongside the disciples that his blood must be poured out for many, and that the good news of his resurrection must be proclaimed to all the world. Hello. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
How's it going?
Great.
Hey, question while you intro yourselves. We've had recently had like a nice day. Couple like nice day, bad day, bad day, nice day, bad day. What is like a thing that happens in you? Like what's like something you want to do when there's like a nice day in Erie or New York out of the blue? Like what's your go-to? Like, oh, I need to do this or experience this or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yard work.
Oh, really? That's your first inclination?
I want to go out. I'm like, great. I want to clean up the sticks. I was doing this yesterday. Clean up all the sticks. I want to pick up all the dog poop, especially after the snow.
That's bad.
The amount of dog poop and my foolish dog, he'll poop on the sidewalk.
I forgot you have a dog.
In any case, there's all kinds of stuff. I want to get out there and like do the yard work, especially if it's like nice and it's sunny and I can like wear a short sleeve shirt. And I mean, there's other like fun things I want to do, but
that's
I want to go like, get in the yard.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Mike, by the way.
Thank you, Pastor Mike. Don't take your fame for granted.
Fame?
This could be a first,
everybody knows Mike.
first time listener.
Why are you laughing so much, Sarah?
Who you are.
Stop laughing.
Okay, who else?
All right, I'm Andrew.
I
don't have the desire to do yard work.
I'm with you.
Like I have to do it.
You do have a honeydew list, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, Addie actually does a significant portion of the yard work. Like, she's a very equal in the,
Good for you.
She was out raking on Tuesday, like, when I was at work. And I was like,
bless.
wow. Came home and the driveway's got a bunch of little piles.
Raking all the leaves from over the...
Yeah. So, you have one dog. I've got 3 big ones. So, that is... Our yard is littered with... It's a mess right now. But honestly, I want to get outside and move.
Yeah.
Because I feel like after the winter, like, I go into, like, almost hibernation. I always feel like my spirit animal's a bear, not because I'm ferocious or strong, but because I like to hibernate in the winter.
I'm with you.
And you're furry.
And I'm furry.
That's good. So just outside.
So just outside moving. Outside and moving.
That's good.
Oh, you guys are killing me. This is good. I mean, outside, but I want to be outside in the winter too. So it's not that unusual. It's the sun. Regardless of temperature, the sun shines and I need to have my face in it. Mm-hmm. So
that's fair.
Yeah, it feels good. But like Mike said, it feels good to do that without bulky layers, weighing
just
you down.
Being able to walk outside. I walked to my car last night to move it for the neighborhood kids to play with no shoes on. I was like, oh man, that was awesome.
You walk in the grass and you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
But like, so we appreciate it and we don't take it for granted because we don't have it all the time.
Correct.
No.
So you got to make the most of it for sure.
Yes, we soak it up.
Thank you, Pastor Sarah.
Yes, that's my name.
Yeah. Okay, hey, so guys, I think we finally made it. We got not one question this week submitted, but 2. One email question and one YouTube question.
Really?
Yeah. So we're going to answer the email question today. I'll just give a little snippet of it. We're going to deal with this and then we'll jump into the sermon content for this week. This is an email we received, part of it anyway. And the person says, as we read through Jesus' trial and crucifixion, do you think Jesus is modeling how we should live or have we crossed over into the prophecy/salvation part of the story? Obviously, we shouldn't claim to be the Messiah in front of the Sanhedrin, but do you think it was even possible for any of the disciples to follow Jesus for this part of his story, or were his followers specifically prevented from following him after Jesus was arrested? Lots of questions in there. Mm-hmm. Pick a couple. I'll punt it to you, Sarah. Pick whatever and we'll email you also some more information. But
So my brain started with the first question about, do you think Jesus is modeling how we should live or have we just crossed over to the prophecy salvation part of the story? And I was like, I've never actually thought about that before, but I think anywhere we're reading about who Jesus is, there's always implications then for who we are. Like my brain immediately jumped to Philippians 2, where Paul says your attitude should be the same as Jesus Christ. And then he goes into that beautiful poem or song whatever it is, about Jesus having emptied himself and being obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross, etc. So that's where my brain jumped immediately of like, okay, this whole passion narrative is giving us the framework, the location for Jesus' salvific act on our behalf. Like, this is what's happening, is our salvation is going to be possible because of what he's doing. But like, he's not ever just our savior. He is always also our Lord. And so there will always be an implication for how then does this call me to obey?
That's good.
And the other thing was like, theologically, Jesus is called like the second Adam. And so where Adam was unable to live that obedient life, Jesus is able to live the obedient life. And so in all situations at all times, then if we're following Jesus, the call to us is to be obedient to whatever he's calling us in whatever the situation is. Way easier to say that out loud than to live that in reality. But that's the initial,
that's good thoughts. Yeah.
Where my brain went.
Yeah, I think the question, if I'm boiling it down the right way, is what Jesus is doing when he's before the Sanhedrin, and we're going to talk even further when he's before Pilate. Is it prescriptive or descriptive?
Right.
Yeah.
Is it describing Jesus, what only he can do, or is it prescribing for us what we can do? And I agree, Sarah. I think it's the answer to the question. I think it's yes to both. There's an element here where like, would the disciples have even been able to follow Jesus through this? I don't think. This is clearly what Jesus is about to do, only Jesus can do in one sense.
Yep.
At the same time, there are aspects, like you're saying, Sarah, that we need to put on and we take when appropriate. I think of, so Jesus here is silent before the Sanhedrin. We're going to talk about how he's silent before Pilate. But I think of Paul before whoever he was before at the end of Acts when he says, I appeal to Caesar.
Yeah.
And he's speaking out. He's defending himself, and he actually he pulls the political levers that he has in order to continue his mission. I think it's Luke. Jesus sends out the 12 or the 72 or whatever, and he says, don't take a cloak, don't take a sword. Sends him out later and says, take an extra bag, take a cloak, take a sword. So there's something here that only Jesus can do, and he's clearly doing it. At the same time, if we're standing in a somewhat similar situation, should we be quiet or should we defend ourselves? Maybe. I think that's that savvy follower, and I think we see in the Bible examples of people staying silent appropriately.
Yeah, you see both.
People pushing back and speaking up appropriately. So that is just a wonderful pastoral non-answer.
Yes, really solid.
Good. There's a certain amount of, I think you were getting at this too, Sarah, where part of what Jesus was doing was surrendering to the will of the Father.
Yep.
And so that is
Correct.
something we can all
Absolutely.
100%.
There you
aspire
go.
to do.
Why didn't you just answer the
I don't
question?
know. I just thought of it when you two were talking.
She
I don't
summed
come
that
with these answers. I listen to you guys and I'm like, oh yeah, that. But because we can't. None of the disciples could have done that. Nobody else could have done that. Jesus knew what had to happen,
And I think Peter had a choice. I don't know. I think it's interesting to consider, was Peter barred from maybe, but I think his choice to deny Jesus was not
right.
You know what I mean?
It was his choice.
That was his choice. It was prophesied in advance and everything, but he made the choice to deny Jesus. Could he have gone into the room?
That's fascinating.
I don't know. But I know God is sovereign and he knows, and I'm okay.
Add it to the list. Yeah. It's a notebook I hope God will take with me to heaven.
I mean, Peter sticks his foot in his mouth. Peter does rash things. I mean, maybe if he had walked in there, he would have
blown it up.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Jesus needed it to blow up in a specific where God, So I don't know. That's interesting.
That's good. Well, thanks for that question. Keep them coming. We have 3 more weeks. You can load us up. We'll see what happens. Okay, so this week, though, we're talking about Pastor Derek's sermon on Mark. We're in Mark 15, 1-20, Christ's horrible and holy substitution. Anybody want to just give any initial thoughts, overview thoughts, set the scene, anything off the top before we get into the outline? If not, that's okay.
I can't say anything from the outline yet. I have to wait.
Oh, you can. If it's ticking out. It's okay. No, go ahead.
No,
Sarah, I know you haven't listened in a while, but usually these things just go wherever people want them to go, and I try to just keep it on some sort of track. Go for it.
No, at the beginning when he talks about us all being on trial in the whatever, however he says it, the the swampland of my own sinfulness. That's how I'm going to say it.
That's great.
But he talks about sometimes we're the judge, sometimes we're the defendant, and sometimes we're the jury for our own. Oh, yeah.
That hits.
I wrote that down. And I wrote this is like one of the great human equalizers. Like I think everyone can identify with that.
Who do you find yourself more? What role? Sure, we play all of these at different times. Which one do you find yourself playing more often?
We definitely play all these at different times.
We do.
Judge. Yeah. Yeah. Shame and I Shame and I have had a long history together.
Bedfellows, if you will.
Yeah.
I think,
I
I guess as I looked at that, because I think that was a great way to start the message. I think I play all three. The thing that I recognized was as I play those roles out, whether it's sort of the even the prosecutor, right? I'm overwhelming evidence for my sin, or the defense. I'm like the thing that I come back to is that every role I play is somehow I'm looking for some benefit to myself. And if it's I'm heaping on, if I'm prosecuting, I say, I did it. It's almost like I'm a victim, and if it's I'm defending myself, obviously there were outside forces or other people that caused me to do something. So I'm always still trying to justify my actions, and it never changes the verdict.
Wow.
And I think that was a realization for me that whatever role I play, I'm actually still trying to somehow benefit myself or make myself feel better. And yeah.
Oh, that's good. So we're all, the goal is always justification.
Always, and it never changes the verdict. Right. So
but
my
you're
goal
still
in
guilty.
right. I mean, my goal in saying, well, I've sinned, and I'm right. That's what some people do, right?
Yeah.
You see some, like an arrest video, and people are saying, I'm just. They're kind of pleading their case, but more from like, I know it was wrong. I know I won't do it again. Obviously, So it's like I'm admitting my guilt, and maybe And then there's other people that are like, well, it wasn't my fault. This happened. They're all still trying to get out of the consequence of whatever action they took.
Good.
It's just, what approach do I feel like taking today?
Wow.
And so that was my takeaway from that little opener.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, I think if I'm thinking about you, I'm the judge. If I'm thinking about me, I'm more often the defense attorney.
Yeah,
I like to justify my own heart or my own thoughts or my own actions.
Yeah.
But I've actually, guys brought this up relatively recently. I'm kind of a judgmental. Well, I'm just kind of judgmental. We'll just leave it at that. So I'm like, that's fascinating.
Wow.
Yeah,
If
interesting.
you ever need judgment, I'll happily provide it.
Pastor Mike.
Free.
Free for free. Okay, 3 questions and unveil God's plan for the guilty to go free. That was the main framework that Pastor Derek was working within here. So we'll go through these 3 questions. Are you the king of the Jews? Why aren't you fighting back? And what shall we do with the king? So let's start with the section, are you the king of the Jews? Jesus answers, I'm a different kind of king. What sticks out to you guys in that section?
Well, he says, actually, so you say.
So you say, yeah.
That's the ambiguity
Yeah.
of like, well, wait, is that an answer?
That's not an answer.
Yeah.
Pilate's like, I just think there is some empathy with Pilate here.
Yeah.
Like, he got woken up way too early.
Yes.
And it's like a mob.
Yeah.
They're back again.
And like, what is going on?
Yeah, and he's like, what? How am I being manipulated today?
Yeah.
Like, who's trying to get something over on me with this crazy situation? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. As a kid, I was always like, oh, Pontius Pilate, he was such a bad dude.
Evil,
I read it, evil. Like,
Yeah.
he was the guy that, and then as I read it now, I'm like, I kind of feel bad for him.
He kinda gave them a lot of chances.
And I think at the end of the day, I'm not sure that Pilate cared beyond his own situation.
Correct.
Oh,
I was just
Absolutely.
like, I'm just trying to control things. Like,
Right.
there's political unrest.
Yeah.
I'm the governor. If this goes bad, so do whatever you want. I don't really care. This is, and part of me is like, he's thinking in a way, this is not a Roman issue. This is not, it's a Roman issue if it rises to insurrection.
Which is why I'm not going to make the choice.
Right, exactly.
I'm
Which
not
is why
dealing
I'm
with
going to
that.
wash my hands of the situation.
Let's make it clear this was you guys.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, like I don't want, like, it's such a, it's almost like just political positioning from Pilate. And almost you can just see him after that being like, that was kind of an annoying warning, but I'm glad it's over with.
But there was just enough curiosity, though.
Right.
Oh,
in
it's
Pilate
definitely
to be
intrigued.
like, and he was amazed, and he was like, "But why are you like?"
Yeah.
He didn't just write it off and go, let's like wrap this thing up. So he leaned in a little bit. And
and I think
there's a humanity to that. That's
the fascinating part is that, why I don't understand why you're not defending yourself. Like I haven't found anything in you that would provide.
He was
guilt
intrigued by Jesus.
Yeah, it's yes, which is pretty standard with Jesus, and I'm like, so yeah, I don't know. I read into that. And I'm like, Pilate had he had an interesting morning that morning. Like
there was more. Dare did a good job on they provided more depth to the character of Pontius Pilate than we normally are accustomed to getting, and that was fascinating.
Yeah, that's really good.
I liked his call out of, if Buddha had been asked the question, if Muhammad had been asked the question, and then he kind of turned us into the, I guess, like our political, where we find ourselves today, the climate we find ourselves in today, which I think is really relatable to people hopefully listening.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting. He's just like, this is one area where you sit on the fence.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is so hard for us, especially us Western.
Yeah, the political fences.
Yeah.
We like black and white. And literally, Jesus is sitting in the gray.
Yeah.
Surprise, life is lived in the gray.
Well, like you said, there's the judge in all of us who just wants to declare what, you're right and I'm right and you're wrong. Or, like that sense of,
I think that what was it? The bring your
lean, submit your bow.
Don't submit your bow.
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic because it's okay for us to lean on the fence, but it can never impede on our bow, which is only to Jesus. And I think there's a lot of people leaning, and it looks a lot like a bow.
Yeah,
they
it's
might
intense.
not even know it. And that's a good. I like that. Just kind of picture in my mind.
I was very convicted by the Mark Sayers quote, or not even quote, but he had that call for Christians to be a non-anxious presence in the midst of all the chaos.
Crap.
Yeah.
Even, as neutral as some of us try to be, I think it is difficult to be that non-anxious presence all the time.
Yeah.
Difficult.
He wrote a whole book about it called that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite insightful.
Good resource.
I think that's one of the things too, because we're in the middle of this digital fast.
Yes.
And like before I started, I was like, it's been a pretty contentious few months. I don't know what's going on now because I'm off social media, but I'm like, that's actually really helped. Like I've noticed a change in myself. I think even in the last couple of weeks of just being like, I feel a little lighter, like, and in a good way, not like I'm just going to unplug and not care about these things, but it's like, no, it gives me time to sort of reset and think about what am I actually plugging into? What am I actually drawing from? What are the sources I'm getting information from? What are the, and so to sort of have this moment to just reset and be like, I just think it's a good thing often to just sort of unplug for a little while and be like, where are my priorities? Like where, and that helps you be that non-anxious presence, I think, anyway. So
you're saying because you're not keyed into some of the technological,
I'm not keyed in,
you were.
And what I realized, Mike, is I think I was keyed into sources that I would say are news sources when in fact they're just they're not built for news. They're built for opinion. Yeah. I mean, Twitter's fascinating right now since Elon Musk took it over and all that stuff.
Yeah.
X, the everything app. It's the Wild West, and I don't trust anything I see on that. You can't, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to be like, that's legit. That actually happened. That So some of the sources that I draw from that I think a lot of the world is saying now are the news sources. They're really they're not. They're flavored all the time. So I think it takes, again, Derek's preached on this a little bit, but it takes the focus off the local, which is actually where I have a circle of influence, and puts it back on the national. And I think it actually takes me away from what I can do in the local.
You actually could. Yeah, that's good.
Oh, that's fascinating.
I don't know how much people know about algorithms too, and as you like unplug, what happens is if you decide you get news from Q and V, you will get news that's similar to Q and V, and that will go into all your feeds, like all the things, whether it could be anything, emails that you get, social media stuff, whatever. And so you start to build, you're not doing it. The technology is doing it for you. AI is doing it for us. And so we're like heaping all this extra information on us.
It's like a snowball going down the hill.
Yeah, you might have started with
algorithm picks up steam.
Yeah, you might have started with something very benign as like your rhythm of like how to check news.
Right. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're spending 2 hours because you have all these things to catch up on or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they're all things that pique my interest just enough that I'm like, oh, yeah, wow.
You watch one cute dog video with a Trump hat, and all of a sudden your algorithm is skewed. Yeah.
But it's a good, I think, advice to like unplug and get out of it and then restart appropriately. Like if you need to re-engage with culture, how do you do it in a way that's honoring to God, that helps set you up to be that person of peace and
allows you to lean without bowing.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Well, and Jesus standing there with a non-anxious presence,
right?
Yeah.
Between a mob and a bewildered Roman governor.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't concerned about, the mob's concerned about all the religious leaders, like their power structure and the status quo, and and Jesus is just like, no, I know the will of the Father, and therefore,
and it was intriguing,
and therefore,
Pilate was like, whoa,
what is happening?
Well, yeah, why is this so different?
Yeah,
and I love that because I think that was the thing that carried that non-anxious presence for Jesus. There was in the garden, I did the work, and I sweated it out,
right, with the Father,
and left that garden saying, I'm still committed to your will over my own. And that to me is just like, I've looked at that over the last couple of weeks in just such a different lens of like that moment of preparation set up this ability for him to just sort of move through the next horrible, hours with this resolute posture of not mine, but your will be done. And that's,
So that, all right. So if we circle back to the question, I think the key then. When we're standing in persecution or suffering or whatever, we lean on the Holy Spirit of how to act. Yeah. But regardless, I think it's that non-anxious presence that's what we're called to emulate, no matter what the circumstance or what our response is supposed to be. Good. Yeah. That is what Jesus is demonstrating. That is absolutely prescriptive. For us.
Yeah.
That's really good.
My New Testament professor last fall, we were standing in the Colosseum in Rome, and he tells us the story of the last games to be held in that Colosseum. Prior to that, a Christian, I want to say he was a pastor of the early church, and this would be like 100 years after Jesus. Like the games continued for, quite a long time. I'm going to say like even maybe 200 AD. Yeah. Somebody go look this up. All the details and facts are not in my brain at the moment. But anyway, he had been calling for an end to it as like, this is, undignified. This is wrong, blah, blah, blah. And so their response was like, all right, well then you get to get thrown to the wild animals. And he just went willing, like there was no protest on his part. Wow. He was just like, if this is what it takes to end it, like I will stop. And that was it was because of that, the way that they conducted that. The actual, like, the people were appalled that this peaceful man had been. Wow. Yeah. And so the games were done.
Wow.
And like,
dang it. The Spirit called him to just act like Jesus.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Right. And right. And that's the thing. Like, Jesus says, in this world you will have trouble. Yeah. And so it's not like following Jesus is going to lead us out of these kinds of circumstances. It will actually lead us in.
No, that's really good.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Good
all right.
plug on our Rome trip last year. All right.
That's funny. Okay. Number 2. Why aren't you fighting back? Jesus' answers indicated, I wield a different kind of power. Thoughts here?
Yeah, that his kingdom's not of this world. And so my brain immediately goes to like, what would it have looked like in that space at that time? If he's saying my kingdom is not of this world right here and what's happening. Yeah.
I think we just kind of stumbled right into it. I mean, even just the example of that pastor standing there in the Colosseum, and there is if we just land on that guy again for a little bit longer, but the power that that he would have had through the Holy Spirit to stand there peacefully and just endure Like that is not a worldly power in any way,
Right.
shape, or form. That is
Yeah.
an otherworldly power that then did what worldly power could not do. Just like Jesus here had a power that overcame whatever earthly sinful power that Satan was trying to. It's how many said upside down, like dynamic kingdom that he brings in. That's just so not what we experience on the day to day.
Right.
Well, and that's what the word witness is, martyr. So we took the word for witness and used it for the people who were willing to lay down their lives, which is like an interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm gonna go witness to my neighbor. That's a different.
Right. So are you
Wow.
willing
That's totally-
to lay down your life
Oh man.
to be a witness? And what does that mean? Obviously, in our context in 21st century America, that is a different thing that right now in other places of the world where that's literally a death,
It's a death
thing.
Yeah.
And all throughout Christian history, that's looked different. But like Martin Luther King Jr.,
Yeah.
Yeah.
non-anxious presence, a witness, and a martyr, like all the things to the will, obeying the Father.
I like how Derek put it. It's exerting power under and not power over. Is this kind of upside down kingdom?
And it's not subversive.
No.
But it's
It's like foundational. It's
I mean, it's a little bit.
It is.
It's
it's
well
not a
with
negative.
a positive connotation.
Yeah.
It's subversive
yeah.
in a positive
Right.
way.
Yeah.
It's subverting the power structures that exist,
Yeah.
the sinful earthly ones, but it's like a positive subversion, which is just a funny thing to think about.
Right, yeah. The word is just a negative connotation in our heads, but
this is where he talked about Julian too. The
He got into that. Yeah. Yep.
Which I thought was fascinating.
Really
He
cool,
just say like he was annoyed that like they're taking care of their own poor, but they're also taking care of the Roman poor. I mean, it was like this model of this doesn't make any sense. Like this is and I think it says a conspiracy of kindness, right? This idea that again. We can model that this isn't just for us. We're modeling this outside of and that to me kind of talks about the type of kingdom, right? Jesus it wasn't just this thing. It was like, nope.
Yeah.
Now we're expanding. Now we're going. Like it doesn't matter where you come from or who you are. The call is the will of the Father, and that goes to all people, all nations.
I mean, we look at Stephen was martyred in Acts, and then that's when the church began to spread. The church at its greatest, most foundational, multiplicative growth in those first 3 centuries until I think it was Constantine, until he became a Christian and made it the Roman religion, and then all of a sudden the growth slows down.
Yep.
But it was when Christians were willing to live and die and use this otherworldly power through their witness and through their sacrificial living.
Yeah, if
That's
they
when
had
the church
done
grew.
what we do, I say we in the corporate American Christian we, if they had been like, let's get all the Christians elected. Let's get all the Christians in these like positions of power. Let's make them all judges. Let's get them all to be whatever. It would have never taken off.
Correct.
I mean, you're proving that. In
Best
this
case, it
statement.
wouldn't have taken off. Worst case, they get corrupted and
Sure. Well,
Yeah.
and that
may or may not be happening today.
yeah, you can kind of make a case for that happening
Well,
over time.
yeah,
over
like
time.
if you look at this from the political lens, that Julian, that text that they have, that letter that they have from then, is the evidence of how subversive it was, how countercultural the idea of helping the undignified was.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? But these people are gaining influence, and so therefore we're going to imitate this. That's what happens. So like you have this like Jesus
That's
revolution spreading through something that was not what the world did then. They did not care about the poor and the marginalized. They did not care about the unborn. They did not care about the babies left out. Like that was 100% Christianity. Now today, think about how many Christians are opposed to policies that lift up and care for the dignified, because culturally now that's the right thing to do. Justice is right now. And that's the influence of Christianity over 2,000 years. That's what has gotten the modern West to the place where we value humans' life for the most part. And then we will be the ones who say, we will cry foul over somebody's policy on caring for the marginalized in whatever fashion. And that's just, I'm like, oh man, we have flipped it back upside down.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's. Yeah. I don't know if I want to go here. I had this like random thought when I was listening to the sermon when he was talking about like what we're talking about. It's stuff that's happening in that moment. Jesus is doing this upside down work. And I'm thinking too, like, okay, he's also at the same time, he's doing this like in real time with real people on the earth, but he's also doing it with like powers that none of them could see, like Satan. So like the whole time, Satan's just like, this is going great. This is exactly what I want to happen.
That's a
yes,
thought.
yes, 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 yes. Mm-hmm. This is amazing. And really, like, obviously, like the ultimate power move was like in this like sacrifice. I don't know. Anyway, I didn't fully complete the thought, but just Jesus was running so many plays.
He was playing chess and
everyone else is chess. And even Satan was
checkers.
playing checkers. Yeah, like just kind of like this is going swimmingly, and then just whoops at the end. But I don't know. Anyway, and how just all this stuff had to stack up and happen this way, and God wanted it to happen this way. I don't know. Anyway, no full thought, just half thought.
No, that's good. There's no human would come up with this series of events.
No.
I firmly believe that. This is not a human.
No, it's not a human condition. And even the example you gave, Sarah, I'm sure he would have preferred not to die.
Of course.
He did, yeah.
Like, let's just talk about the Colosseum. Everything's cool. You know, like it's fun. But then he realized, okay, this is what's going to happen. This is what needs to happen.
Right.
But yeah,
we're not we're not looking for martyrdom.
Right.
We
no,
are.
No. Yeah.
It's just, yeah.
Okay, random. Okay, so number 3, what shall we do with the king? This is the Barabbas situation. And Jesus, he's basically, what Derek is saying is like, I apply a different kind of justice. So thoughts here.
I had never, like just the way that Derek put sentences together in this section.
I cried. I did.
Yeah. I was like, when, the innocent sent to die so the guilty could go free. I'm like, yeah. But he applied it to Barabbas.
I know.
And I was like, oh, wait, that was
new.
I've never stopped there and considered the substitution that happened right at that moment.
Yep.
Because my brain just jumps ahead to what I know is coming next.
This is my little reflection.
So to like stop there, the first substitution was for Barabbas. And I'm like,
I'll imagine I'm Peter. I'm still like, I failed Jesus, but I'm still, I'll be Peter. I'll be John, sitting at the cross. Like, this is your mother. And like, I'm watching. I've never put myself in the shoes of Barabbas. So that I had to like put the phone down and like lean back a little bit and just go, fascinating. Fascinating.
Yeah, I heard that in a sermon a while ago, and not the same thing, but a similar, just like the Barabbas kind of angle. And I think in that sermon, somebody was saying like, you wonder if later in life, if Barabbas made it to later in life, was he like, kind of like the same Pilate vibe of like, I wonder why that happened. I wonder why that, like why me, like why, I was a convicted criminal. Why and he wasn't guilty of anything, because you imagine that there was, who knows, maybe he heard fragments of the story, even on, like he's a free man all of a sudden. And it's like, and I think I might get this wrong. Maybe this is just in my own mind, but it's like, it would be really odd if Barabbas wandered around and found the cross on Friday and the scene, and like, oh, that's,
like he knows he was supposed to be there.
Yeah,
so
he was
went
like,
to check
and
it out.
just like, oh yeah, and who knows? That's all speculation.
No, of
There's
course, you can imagine it's
but
fine.
it's just one of those things that you think every time Jesus encounters somebody, their life is somehow changed and transformed. Like I believe that there's no a true encounter with Jesus that somebody has where you're left unchanged. And so for Barabbas, maybe it was like, hey, my life just got a whole lot better, and maybe it's just an internal thing. And it's like, I'm going to go back to whatever, it's just like, that perspective offers, just like what Derek was talking about, so many moments where you have to stop and kind of just arrest your thoughts and be like, wow, can I really put myself in his place and think about the story from a different perspective?
I think, I mean, this is me speculating. I think Barabbas received the mercy and rejected the grace.
That's a good way to put it.
It's really good. Yeah.
So he did not get the punishment he deserved. Cool beans, baby.
Yeah.
But he didn't look at what the gift was on the other. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know. I might not be saying that quite right, but something about it is like, you know, we don't know, of course. But that's one of those things of like, you have to decide.
Yeah.
Like an encounter with Jesus is going to change you. It's going to make you cold and hard and reject.
Yeah.
True.
Right.
Yeah.
Or soften you. I don't know. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I just, it was just, it just struck me that, we're Barabbas, and it's easy. It's easy to put myself in Peter's shoes. Oh, I denied Jesus, but it all worked out for Peter or John or whatever. Even to be like a religious leader, like, well, I mean, they kind of meant well, and they were kind of like, but this dude was a murderer.
Yeah.
I mean, there is no getting away from the, ooh, that's bad.
Right.
What he was accused of.
He knew he was guilty.
And he, like, that's, there's nothing redeemable about what he did. We are him. And I don't like to think like that. But it is true.
Yeah.
Our sin carries that kind of weight.
And that's you mentioned it's it's kind of easier to see yourself as Peter, or that I'm like, it's easy for me to just see myself as a bystander. Like I just want to kind of like I'm observing. I didn't really do anything. I just kind of like man, it's easy to walk through life thinking I'm just a bystander, because if I'm just a bystander, I didn't really do anything. Maybe I didn't really prevent anything, but I can just kind of live in the middle and not really. But when I'm confronted with the idea, nope, you're Barabbas.
You're Barabbas.
That's shockingly different.
But you have the opportunity now to receive not just the mercy, but the grace as well, and to go live radically changed.
Yeah.
With gratitude for knowing who you were.
Yes.
But now who you are. Because of Jesus.
So
it adds a whole depth to it that. Man,
that's good.
Yeah, and even just thinking through, I'm going way back, like Sunday school times, like I could and did identify even like with the thief on the cross. Like that was not offensive to me to think like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
I'm a thief.
Can I be there heaven, blah blah. But this one, for some reason, is just more arresting. Or maybe it's because I'm older. I don't know, but.
I wonder what it was like for Barabbas. Like, all right, so give it, 42 days later, Jesus comes back, and then he's like hearing these stories about Jesus is back. He's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
Like, wow, what did he? Oh, that'll be fun to ask God one day in heaven.
Yeah.
What did Barabbas do?
I think he got out of Dodge. I think he knew.
I do too.
He avoided
human
punishment
nature.
once. He better.
Yeah.
He better get on a ship.
Okay, and this is going to sound like an obvious question, but I think we can talk about it a little bit in our personal context for us and people listening, but also the people that we're interacting with as exiles. The ultimate question, what shall I do with Jesus? And Andrew, you're just starting to get to this, but how does this narrative, how does this help us relate with the people in our lives who are maybe they're thinking about Jesus, maybe they're not thinking about him at all? How does this help us?
I mean, I do think that we need to remember the subversive aspect of this, that like justice is not us getting all our preferred officials elected so that we can get our way about policy. Justice is the ways in which it's the Micah 6:8,
That's
right?
good.
Yes.
Do justly, love mercy, walk humbly. That's like the way of Jesus, no matter what system of government we live under. And I do think that's the testimony of the church and the Spirit's power to preserve God's people and the church through centuries of, I mean, all kinds of ridiculous upheaval and whatever. But so it's like the people I don't agree with, the people who are hard, God made you with dignity, and therefore I will treat you as he would. I don't know.
Yeah, that's good.
I think it's the idea of, I mean, this all had an effect because of Jesus' actions, not his words. He had some words, and they're very, but it was his action in this moment, or inaction in this moment, that really landed with Pilate. It was his actions that ultimately accomplished what they did on the cross. And so I think that's, again, if we're trying to parse out, going back to the question at the beginning, which part of this is prescriptive for me and which is just descriptive of Jesus. Jesus is a whole lot more walking and a whole lot less talking here. And I think that would be, I think that's, boy, if you're going to lean, that's probably the way we should be leaning is walking out those acts of mercy and forgiveness and justice and without blah, 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 and getting all uppity about it. Because, I mean, that's standing in the Colosseum and just peacefully enduring martyrdom. He didn't talk. That action, actions just go farther than words. And I think we're very talky here in the American church. Yeah. Not so much walky. And I wish, I think we need to be more, we need to act better and talk less.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I think it challenges me to kind of say like, no, I don't want to go looking for trouble or looking for, places that, I could be martyred. Like, I'm not going to go actively look for that, but I can't avoid it either. And I think that somebody mentioned, the passage in John that says, in this world you will have trial and tribulation. Like the gospel road, walking out my salvation, is going to be met with trial. It's going to be met with hard places. It's going to be met with situations I have to confront and stand up to, but I have to do that in a way that honors Jesus and is modeled by him in this whole narrative. And I think that's the thing that I walk away with. If I really want to say, well, what do I do about the fact that Jesus is king? What do I do with King Jesus? It's like I have to live my life like he's my king. And that means he lays out a model for me, but he also doesn't shy away from difficult spots and difficult places. I think we live our lives, especially in this culture, with this, like, all I want to do is avoid problems. All I want to do is avoid conflict. All I want to do is avoid, and I'm not saying like go find somebody you haven't and have a really all out brawl or argument with, but I'm like, confront the places of sin in your life. Confront the places that need to be, the dark places that need to have some light brought in, and go about the redemptive work. We can't sit and just hope it happens. There is redemptive work to be done, and it's going to be hard, and it's going to create moments where, again, we have to be more action-oriented and less like, I'm just going to talk through it. I'm just going to argue for something. I've got to live my faith out in a way that probably isn't going to make sense to a lot of people around me. But I hope it doesn't make sense, because it's a peaceful, low anxiety,
exactly.
Move towards the problem. It's the upside down thing. So that's.
Jesus told his disciple, before all this passion drama unfolds, he says, as the Father has sent me, so I am sending you. And so if you just don't move to the sending you part quite yet, just sit in the as the Father sent me and read the Gospels through that phrase. How did Father send? And I'm like, I mean, I aspire to live that image of Jesus, but
yeah, it's good. Beautiful. Okay. All right, that's good. Let's end on that thought. If you, we only have a couple more episodes left. Maybe 3 you figured out?
3 is wild.
Gone too soon.
Wild.
We can have a party or do something.
Oh, you weren't here. We said last week we should have, like, any of the regular guests just have all of our spouses on for like a bonus episode.
That was such a good idea.
And just let them go nuts.
Yeah. As you've listened to us the last 2 years.
But we'll all find out that none of our spouses listen to it.
That was the realization, was like, I don't think our spouses actually listen to this.
Good.
So, I know, me too. I'm like,
which is
all right. That's okay.
So maybe we'll do a bonus episode. Okay, so as usual, you can go to whoisgrace.com/Mark for the resources that'll point you to the sermon and the read plan and things like that. So go ahead and go there. And again, you can submit questions if you want to at that same spot. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.